Hi, my name is Amina. I'm a self-taught software engineer, and in this video, I want to talk about how to be a self-taught software engineer. So, you are interested in becoming a software engineer, but you're thinking about how you're going to do it. Are you going to get a computer science degree, which probably takes around 3 years? Are you going to do a boot camp, which costs thousands, or are you going to be self-taught? So if you're considering the self-taught route, then this video is most definitely for you. I've already done a video on my personal self-taught journey and how I became a software engineer whilst working full-time and looking after a baby. So I'll link that down below. And in this video, I will describe to you what you need to consider before you commit to a self-taught journey, and I will tell you the exact steps that I would take if I were going to start my journey all over again, but knowing what I know now. So, the first thing I want to say is to issue a kind of risk warning. Being self-taught is not easy. I think there are a lot of stories out there about people getting a very high-paying engineering job after just a few months, but I don't know if this is the norm. It took me 9 months, and I have friends, a few friends for whom it took 3 years to get their first job as a self-taught software engineer. So it really is not a quick win. I would actually never recommend the self-taught route if you have options. If you have the opportunity to do a high quality boot camp, I would always go for that option, because the challenge of getting a job as a self-taught engineer is real and can cause quite a lot of stress. So this is something that I wanted to say at the beginning of this video, that really being self-taught is not for the faint-hearted, and it can be a long journey and a difficult one. So this is just something to bear in mind. So there is a difference, I think, between the self-taught devs who get their first job quickly and the self-taught devs who might be taking a bit longer. Now, this is a huge generalization, but if you want to become a software engineer and teach yourself in less than a year, I think there are a few things that you should be doing. So the first thing is that every single thing you learn and every single thing you do should be directed towards interview preparation. Absolutely everything should be about how can I improve my CV so that a recruiter will pass me on to the next round. How can I pass a technical test? If you have to do systems design interview, how can I pass a systems design interview? Absolutely everything should be directed towards getting that job. And that is something that I didn't do, and I think that cost me quite a few months. I'm gonna link to one of my favorite YouTubers, Bukola, because her self-taught journey is it's almost perfect, I think. So I'm gonna link to her video because she is a really fantastic example of someone who was just fully focused on getting a job and managed to teach herself really, really quickly in a matter of a few months, I think. The second thing is to be applying for jobs constantly. I got so many rejections, and you need the rejections to learn. Also, every rejection I got a technical test, so I kept hold of that technical test so that I could practice it later. So the rejections are a way of getting better, and the more jobs that you apply for, the earlier you start applying for jobs, the more knowledge you're going to get about where your gaps are and what you need to learn. Every job interview you do, every technical test you do, you can always be asking for feedback, and you just keep working on the things that you need to improve until you get a job. The third point I want to make is to practice technical tests. To keep practicing technical tests, put them on your GitHub, have them there in your GitHub profile. I was just making really basic things like, I don't know, like a shopping till, like vending machine type things, calculators, all that sort of stuff. Everything that just gets you practicing your syntax, your basic programming skills. There are all sorts of algorithmic type things that you can do as well. All of those technical test type things, they're all really, really useful because as software engineers, we get new jobs by passing these technical tests. So it's really, really important to constantly practice them. So what is the journey, the self-taught journey that I would recommend if I were going to start all again? So this is a really fun thing for me to think about because I've been a software engineer for 2 years now, and the way that I would go about becoming a software engineer is completely different to what I actually did. So the first thing I would do is I would learn basic Python. Why Python? Python is a language that is used a lot in industry. So like it's used a lot in software engineering. So you never know, you might be likely to find yourself actually getting a Python job. Python is a great language for doing technical tests in. People who are not even Python devs, so often might choose a language like Python to complete their technical tests in, just because it's such an easy language. It's easy language to write in. It's succinct. It's not like Java, which has a lot of boilerplate. So it can be a really good language for writing tests in. Another thing is that Python is supported by so many learning resources. It has such a rich community. So no matter your question, you will always find an answer to it online. You'll also find tons of mentors as well. So the first thing I would do is learn basic Python using free online resources like Code Academy, YouTube videos, Exercism, and I'll link all those things down below. The second thing I would do is I would learn how to use my terminal, super basic things like how to move through a file system, how to print like the contents of a file into standard output on the terminal. I would learn how to use Git, which is the version control system that I think 98% of engineers around the world are using to manage projects and share code. And I would learn how to use GitHub. And I think a bonus would be, finding a Python open source project on GitHub to contribute to, because that gives you some experience and some exposure to what it's like to work in a team of engineers on a project. But I think that's just something I would do if I had time. It's not compulsory. So the third thing I would do is I would learn how to write tests in Python. So I personally don't know this just yet. So I would find, a testing library, and I would practice writing, kind of using test-driven development, writing tests, and then writing code to make the test pass. Why? Because that's what you're likely to have to do for a technical test at interview. The next thing I would do once I had kind of basic Python, knew a testing library and was comfortable using it, and had practiced maybe like 20 technical test type problems and put them on my GitHub, I would prepare my CV and I would start applying for jobs. And I would say best to prioritize kind of graduate schemes and entry-level schemes. Some graduate schemes, at least here in the UK, they kind of accept people who have not just graduated from uni. Maybe their career changes. So that kind of scheme could be you're more likely to get a job in an entry level scheme or a graduate scheme. I actually got my first job through something like that, where the company I work for had a kind of program where every year they would take a couple of people who had unconventional journeys into tech. So that's how I landed my first job. And it's probably one of the reasons why I was so lucky to get a job so quickly. Okay, so when you do your job interviews, you must always ask for feedback, especially when you do your technical tests. I remember getting the feedback from someone that I had not memorized enough of the basic syntax. Like, basically, I was Googling too much. For like basic Ruby methods, that interviewer thought I should just know those, without having to Google. So after that interview and after I got that feedback, I then literally sat down with a notebook and memorized basic methods. And then a few interviews later, I had my current job interview, which I passed. And I think one of the reasons I did was because, the methods were just at the top of my head. They were at my fingertips. I could easily kind of recall them. So every rejection is an opportunity for us to get better and better. And we do that through feedback. If you have time, kind of whilst doing all of this, I would stay on the lookout for tech conferences. If you're eligible for a diversity scholarship, there are so many out there. That means you can go to the conference for free. Why do I recommend conferences and meetups? Because we're human beings and we're social by nature, and having a network can also bring you opportunities. At the end of the day, I got my job not through someone I knew. I just, I applied like everyone else, but I did through kind of socializing and getting to know people. I got other opportunities, like finding good mentors that I would spend a lot of time learning from. So it's really important to, if you can and if you want to get involved in the community and also build your network of peers who are going to support you when you have days that are hard, and they're going to pick you up. So that's how I would learn how to code if I had to teach myself again, knowing what I know now. I'd be really interested to hear about your journeys. If you have any questions, please leave your comments down below, and I'll see you soon.